The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Wednesday. It's my favorite day, and especially today because we have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh joining us for Ask Dr. Doreen. This is a wonderful opportunity for you at home to take advantage of this experience and ask questions of a true visionary in the field of autism, a true expert in real time. So Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can contact us here at the show, some of the different ways that you can be watching the show. I'm going to remind you there's only one way to watch the show live right now. That's at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you'll see there's a box that looks like a computer screen. The show plays there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We interrupt that feed to give you the live show 5 times a week, Monday through Friday, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, from 10 a.m. to noon Pacific Time. Please do the math for wherever you are in the world. And while we're live, you get to ask someone like Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh questions in real time. The way that you'll do that, there's the white box next to the computer screen. Put your cursor there, type away, hit enter, and it shows up magically right here on the screen. It's free. You don't have to log in. No one asks for your credit card information or your email. In fact, if you want us to get back to you with information, you'll need to include that in your request. We will edit it out before we show it to the rest of the audience at home. So without further ado, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. Our very special guest in the studio with us now is Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. So wonderful to have you.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be back.
Well, so thrilling. We've got a bunch of questions to ask you, and I want to start out with a question that somebody wrote in that says, my 4-year-old with ASD, and I live in New York City. My 27-year-old brother also has autism, specifically Asperger's. He also has psychosis, paranoia, anxiety, depression. Please help us. My brother didn't have the opportunity to receive the services that my son can take advantage of now. So everything developed into a domino effect for my brother. First, it was chronic depression, and then it went on to more serious issues. And she stops and puts everything in caps. How can we overlap both diagnoses, if possible, to better help my brother, who has a very difficult time speaking out of how he feels, what is going on? He isn't able to share his experiences and thoughts in the group therapy at the behavior hospital he's in because of his Asperger's. Help. Help, help. Please, our family is desperate, and no one is helping us anywhere right now. And she writes, thank you. And I do have to do just a little bit of backup here that you guys write in, and we want you to write in and give us as much information as you can. But I want to remind all of you that Dr. Granpeesheh and no one on the show will be giving you child-specific or adult-specific information. It would be a disservice to them. There isn't You couldn't possibly give enough information for someone of your expertise to give a child-specific or an adult-specific answer, right?
Right, absolutely. And it just wouldn't be right or ethical or fair because there's just so much information that we're missing here. Yeah. But in general, we're going to be able to help you just take the next steps, perhaps, and give you some guidance. In this case, and the other thing I wanted to mention before we get into the question, Shannon, is that we do get a lot of questions, a ton, and sometimes it takes us a few shows to actually catch up with questions. Like right now, we're pretty much bombarded.
Yes.
And so we'll answer as many as we can today. And
Yes.
if you don't hear the answers to your questions today, keep logging in and or go on our site and look at the shows that are on the library there, and hopefully you'll be able to find some of the answers.
Yes, there's on our YouTube pages there's a very specific part that just is Dr. Doreen, Ask Dr. Doreen segments, and if you start playing the video, Emily does a really wonderful thing on the video where she does a catalog of all the questions being asked and answered, and you can just put your cursor over one of them, hit it, and it goes exactly to that spot. So
Are you serious?
Absolutely. That's on every
amazing.
single episode. So
That's crazy.
So if you're wanting a specific answer, you can look and see, okay, this is what they're going to talk about, and you don't have to watch all the other questions and answers, although you learn a lot by watching them.
No, but that's spectacular.
It is.
I mean, we can definitely even use that. Thank you, Emily,
Yeah, she
for
does an
doing
awesome
that, because
job.
that is that's an amazing sort of frequently asked questions list that we can definitely use on a lot of our other sites as well.
Absolutely, and that's available on all of them since we started the Ask Dr. Doreen. So time saving, because we know you need an answer, you need to get it right now.
Right.
So wonderful. So back to this mom who's got a 4-year-old. Go ahead, take it. Absolutely. I've got my own copy actually here.
Okay.
4-year-old on the spectrum, living in New York City, and a 27-year-old brother who's got autism, Asperger's.
Right. Okay.
But so many other issues.
Right. So let's talk about some of these issues. First of all, so it seems like this mom is worried about the brother very, very much.
Yeah.
I can understand, obviously, because the 4-year-old is younger and still has a lot of time. Yeah. Let's just talk about the brother for a second. We don't know when the mom has said that the 4-year-old has ASD, which is the correct way of diagnosing, but I don't know if this child has, what level, if they're high functioning, low functioning, or so. But Asperger's, of course, an older diagnosis would be high functioning, and what the implication of Asperger's would be that there is some pretty decent level of speech, not necessarily abstract or advanced language, but good level of speech. And then mom is saying that the brother also has psychoses such as paranoia, anxiety, and depression. Anxiety and depression are neuroses. I would say, I don't want to say every, but I strongly believe that the vast majority of individuals who have high-functioning autism or PDD-NOS, what it used to be PDD-NOS, or Asperger's, also have anxiety. And the reason for that is that I think they are so intelligent, and they comprehend a lot more than people think, and actually maybe even more than they see certain things certain ways more than we do, even in a much more detailed way. And so that causes them a certain level of anxiety because they're worried about failing. That's like the biggest thing. I think they don't want to be failures. It's kind of an enhanced embarrassment, which we all have, right?
Yeah.
And we avoid things that we're not good at, obviously. But I think individuals with Asperger's that would be just much more enhanced, much more extreme, because really what's happening with them is that they have a very hard time socializing, reading social cues, understanding why people think they're odd. They recognize those things. It's not like they're oblivious to it. They notice that people think they're odd. And that's hurtful, and it causes them a lot of anxiety, so they try to avoid situations that would place them in social settings. Depression and anxiety are the same thing. Anxiety is sort of an antecedent to depression.
Okay.
So you get depressed of things that you are unable to avoid. Anxiety is things that make you afraid and therefore you want to avoid. So kind of anxiety comes first, and if you can't avoid those anxiety-provoking situations, you become depressed. So the paranoia, I don't know that the writer, I'm not sure you really want to refer to this as official paranoia. Paranoia is a little bit different I think what you're referring to is probably the individual is hypersensitive or hyper anxious, really kind of paranoid about things that might put him in an uncomfortable situation. So we're going to focus just on the anxiety and depression. Okay. Now, my understanding is that he is in a
behavioral
group
hospital.
Therapy at a behavioral hospital, right? I don't know what that means. I'm assuming that it is a hospital for individuals, or they have programs for individuals that have challenging behaviors, like maybe emotionally disturbed. This is a 27-year-old, not even a teen. But so, the Asperger's, or the inability to comprehend certain advanced things like the theory of mind concepts, perspective taking, executive functions, all of that sort of stuff is stronger. It's a more pervasive thing than depression and anxiety. So I'm not sure he should be in that setting, because if that's a setting for anxiety and depression people who therefore act out because of their anxiety and depression or behavioral issues, then they're not going to know how to cater to his needs. His needs sound more like, you're saying he has a difficult time speaking out. First of all, group settings are very, very hard for treatment anyway, because 9 out of 10 people in a group have a difficult time speaking their true heart anyway. So the very first thing I would say is a group setting is not going to be the ideal scenario for him. My suggestion would be that you really try to find a psychologist perhaps who can help who's more familiar with Asperger's or with autism, and then dealing with issues of depression and anxiety. These are, what we do, just to back up, because this might apply more to your 4-year-old now. What we do with our kids is, obviously, we treat them all the concepts and skills that they need, but we go into a lot of the more higher level abstract concepts like problem solving, how to be able to moderate your own stress, how to be able to handle social situations, or how to handle anxiety. And we do it with our kids at a very young age where they're still within the ASD umbrella, so we teach them these techniques in a language that they understand. It's a little bit too abstract for someone with ASD to really understand, or with Asperger's, which now falls under ASD, to really understand how to deal with anxiety. I just thought of a way to help this person, which is great.
Love it.
I've done a couple of talks on anxiety, which are pretty long talks. Actually, I think they're like 2.5 hour talks. They should be on the CARD website.
Okay.
And if they're not, I will, Shannon, if you prod me, email it to you, and then we can put it on our website here.
Yes.
Because those will actually help. What I go through, the first section of these talks about how actually autism or ASD or Asperger's is similar to anxiety. How could it be that we wouldn't have anxiety? If you're experiencing the symptoms of ASD or Asperger's, there's no question you're going to experience anxiety and depression. There's no question. It's just too much. Okay? And I go into how a lot of our kids have sensory issues, and it's just, the world is overwhelming. All of that causes anxiety. And then I go into some of the treatments for anxiety, and actually there are, in that particular talk, I give some references to written material and training material that's written for Asperger's and ASD individuals who have anxiety.
Wonderful.
So that talk will be very helpful, I think, to this family.
Okay, great.
I don't know, we don't know anyone in New York who would directly be able to help. We do have an office in New York, but our staff are more geared towards teaching, and they're BCBAs, so they're more involved with younger kids. But I would be happy to find out and try to do some research on what else exists in New York, because this is really a very, very specialized area where the family needs help. And I really do want to hear back, if possible, from this family and see if we were able to help them, because it sounds like they're very desperate.
Okay. And this came in on Facebook, not on our live feature, so we do have a way of getting back to them. We
That's
have their
terrific.
name, and so we can get back to them.
Yeah, that's terrific.
And that's another reason why we want to encourage you, do participate on the live feature, but you can also send things in early on the Facebook page, and then we don't disclose who you are, but we know how to get a hold of you.
Right, that's terrific.
And follow up on things. And of course, we encourage you while you're on the Facebook page to like us on the Facebook page. You can also sign up for our newsletter. And of course, we're always encouraging people to subscribe to our YouTube page. Very important. A shameless moment of self-promotion, I'm sorry.
No, that's terrific. In fact, I was just thinking that it would be wonderful if I somehow handed my professional Facebook page to you guys, because CARD just doesn't have the resources or the time to actually deal with these. And, my ideal scenario would be to answer questions on my own Facebook page as often as I could, and I can't. It's just, there's too many.
Well, I can imagine. We see that, it builds up. But I love this idea that there's already a talk that you do, and we'll make sure that people can have access to that.
Right.
It's interesting as you talk, as a mom, I'm always filtering it through what's going on with my child. My child's 10, but we saw just recently a circumstance that it was sort of like I could look into the future, and I saw for the first time, we were at a friend's house, and they were selling a bunch of things because they were moving, and my child loves Legos, and they had these 2 huge bins of Legos that they were selling, and I said, let's not tell my son. We already have more Legos than I can deal with in life. Let's just not tell him. Let's just all agree that we're not going to talk about that. And my one friend, who is a bit of a so he has his 3 kids, and so he was, at one point my son went to go in the room, and he goes, oh yeah, we don't want Jem to go in there because there are things in there that perhaps, and he's alluding to something, and everybody's sort of tittering and giggling, and my child has enough on the ball now. He goes, what's going on? What's happening?
Yeah.
Why is everybody laughing? Why is that funny? Is there really something I shouldn't go in there? He's asking questions.
Right.
And the friend is going, no, it's okay. Wink, wink. You don't want to be looking at anything in there and being a butthead. And I said to him, you're being a butthead, stop it.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's fine. But everybody's starting to laugh now.
Right.
And I watched my child's anxiety.
Right.
Because he knew enough that something was going on, but socially he couldn't quite, he's not old enough and doesn't have enough together to figure out.
Right.
And he said at one point, are you making fun of me?
Yeah.
Is there something wrong with me? What's happening? And turned to me and said, Mom, help me. I don't understand.
Aww.
And he was starting to have all this anxiety.
Sure, absolutely.
And I finally said, okay, this is what's going on. Mommy's friend is a jerk.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening, and we just didn't want you to know because we didn't want you to be disappointed, but you can't have any more Legos in your life.
Right.
We're not taking these home. And then he said, oh, okay, but why would he be that mean to me?
Yeah.
And I could see that at 10, he's languaging it, but what's that going to be when he's 16?
Right.
That would cause a level of anxiety and a level of paranoia.
Well, yeah, and in his case, of course, he would have learned how to deal with it, right? I mean, because of these scenarios. So don't feel bad about this, because this scenario actually taught him quite a bit.
Yes, and I think hopefully it taught my friend something.
Yeah, and
as I called him all kinds of names in front of his children.
Right, and hopefully you also realized that it wasn't that hard to deal with telling him about the Legos.
Yes, and I decided it was much better to disclose and tell him, here's the thing, and you're going to be disappointed,
yes.
But, I would rather you have the anxiety of feeling like people are picking on you.
Totally.
But I do wonder, Dr. Granpeesheh, about what happens when I'm not there.
Absolutely, and if it wasn't like Jem's had all this intervention, he's so smart, he's figuring all this stuff out by himself. For the kids who don't have any of that.
Yes.
And it's not just, there's the great example, but just imagine, like, we're talking typically developing kids have a hard time with bullying and groups in school leaving others out, and like triangular friendships and like all kinds of weird stuff, right?
Yes.
So our kids, it's unbelievably difficult. One of the first things, people ask me, like, why don't you have kids go to school very early? And my thing is, I need to make sure they're equipped so that they don't go into school and it becomes a complete failure.
Right.
You need to make sure the child has some support system. And so there's no question that our kids would, and that's just, you're giving a great example, which is like the kind of lack of understanding, or like, they can't figure out why people would joke in an inappropriate way, let's say. But there's other stuff too. If you think about it, Shannon, a lot of our kids don't sleep well. Lack of sleep produces anxiety.
Sure.
They have stomach aches. That produces anxiety. I mean, I contrast if you have a day where you have GI problems, gastrointestinal problems. That is, when people write about how that feels and people write about how anxiety feels, it's almost the same. Like, it's very interesting. They have, things that are sensory experiences that are extremely anxiety provoking, like loudness of sounds and lights and so on and so forth. So there's no question. The main treatments for anxiety, by the way, in the world are a combined treatment of sort of cognitive behavioral intervention with medication. And the medications obviously are the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, like, Prozac, etc., as an SSRI, and then there's other new ones like Cymbalta and so on that are more focused on norepinephrine. But both of those will influence. If you work with modifying serotonin levels, your anxiety level goes down. So these are very good medications for anxiety. There's no question. Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, all of these. They're very good for anxiety, and they really don't have significant side effects. I know that some people are pretty afraid of trying medications like this, but there's some huge number, like 60% of Americans take one of these medications.
Amazing.
So, and part of that is because our food source doesn't provide us with the right nutrients to be able to produce the neurotransmitters we need. So, but having said all that, so for this family, it would be good to consider a combined treatment of medical and cognitive. The cognitive aspects are just teaching the individual how to recognize their own signs of anxiety appearing, and then start to become more, just regulated with ways to calm themselves down. A lot of times and we've talked about this on previous shows where we've discussed anxiety, but we, as adults, we find ways to reduce our own anxiety. We have calm rooms. We'll take, someone will go and take a bath. Someone will go shopping. Someone will overeat. Someone will smoke. People have different ways of dealing with their own physiological responses. Our kids don't. They don't recognize their own symptoms. They don't know what will help them calm down. That's why we teach our kids all the breathing exercises and so on.
Amazing. Well, and I will say too, and I've disclosed this before on the show, that I am somebody who has some obsessive compulsive tendencies, and after my son was diagnosed with autism and I got really, really tired, way underslept, I then went into panic disorder. And cognitive behavioral therapy is what saved me.
Absolutely.
I couldn't drive anymore. And it was amazing. It wasn't something that I was familiar with before, but it helped me to get back into a functional state. I won't say that I never have anxiety, but I have tools now that I didn't have before.
Totally.
So I can speak to that and say, for if there's parents that are out there that are dealing with issues, it's something really to be looked at.
And most likely it'll help this individual just to learn some of those tools, like systematic desensitization procedures, breathing exercise, relaxation exercises, meditation. A lot of these types of things are very, very effective, and a lot of what he experiences is very real. And people tend to just ignore those things. So it's very important to deal with.
Well, I hope that this, we're going to make sure that they get that talk that you did about anxiety, and then we'll check back with you
and see
if that helps you out. Okay, we're going to take a break before we come back with some more questions that you guys have written in for Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT, continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. Our very special guest in the studios with us right now is Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, a true expert and visionary in the field of autism.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for all your expertise in sharing it. We had somebody write in and say, "Hi, my name is Suji. I hope I'm saying it right, and I'm a first-year medical student at the Saba University School of Medicine. I've just finished watching your interview with Dr. Doreen on YouTube. Thank you so much for sharing that information. This was about the DSM V. I have a presentation on the differentials for ASD using the new DSM V for my neuroscience class. I'm still a little confused about the differentials for ASD. Can a child not be diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome anymore? We've had this question in so many different ways from so many people. Also, do you still differentiate ASD from the genetic disorders? I know Dr. Doreen mentioned you can write ASD with Rett syndrome. Thank you for your help."
And so the quick answer to that, and I think, Shannon, we've had so many requests on this information that I wanted to do one anyway, just as for the IBT site, actually. I wanted to do a training, like a half hour, an hour training, so I have to get that on calendar and do it. So to answer the first question, well, first of all, the neurological and genetic and all these other disorders are kept separate. Yes, they are. If you train as a psychiatrist or psychologist, which this individual is, I think, going into neurology, I'm not sure, but with the mental disorders, you diagnose on axes. There's 5 axes. The third axis is where you will diagnose medical. So your ASD diagnosis would go on the first axis, and the second axis is more for long-term types of things like mental retardation or personality disorders. The third axis has to do with medical issues. So if an individual has, let's say, a genetic disorder that, even though we might agree that the genetic disorder, let's say Angelman syndrome, is causing the symptoms of autism, you still would go ahead and diagnose ASD on the first axis and Angelman's on the third. And that's how you would diagnose it. Now, for Asperger's, the current way to diagnose it would be to say ASD Asperger's type.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the word is not completely gone.
No, it's an option.
Okay, because there's been a lot of...
It's a modifier. It gives you the ability to say what... And especially, they give you that option... They give you the option of maintaining the Asperger's diagnosis if the individual was diagnosed earlier.
Okay, so kind of a grandfather, the term. Because there's been a lot of blogging about that in the blogosphere. There's a new series that just came out on FX called The Bridge. And one of our regular guests, Alex Plank, was the consultant. He has Asperger's, and the title character, although within the realm of the show, they never identify that she has Asperger's, they have disclosed and said this character has Asperger's, and she's working with Alex to, and everybody's been saying, isn't it ironic that finally there's a realistic, person playing Asperger's as the diagnosis goes away and the term is no longer exists. So not necessarily. The term still can exist.
It does exist.
Okay.
It just falls under that.
Okay, great. And then in terms of, I think that pretty much answers all of her questions there.
Right, and I do think that I should do another video set on this, just the training, because there's a lot of actual detail that I left out and I can go into.
Okay.
But it's and perhaps what we should do is also put some video clips. A lot of people are getting kind of confused with how to use DSM-5.
Yeah. There's been an overwhelming sea of questions, and a lot of professionals who have loved the video and praised the video that you did.
That's great.
And asked if they can use the information. One school psychologist who's going to train their entire staff using the presentation that you did. So thank you so much for filling in a blank that nobody else was addressing and bringing that information to us. We've got another viewer who says, I live in Florida, but my kids live with their father in Harlingen, Texas. There are no certified specialists for autism down there. They work with what they know about ADHD and try to assume it will work with autistic kids. And she's wanting some help and advice about, would that be appropriate?
No.
Okay.
We're talking about two completely different universes even. Like, there's similarities which have to do with the inability to pay attention, essentially, distractibility. But other than that, there's really, they're worlds apart. Autism is much more pervasive and much more just serious and affects every area of functioning. ADHD, depending on which type it is, will mainly be a typically developing child who's impulsive or hyperactive. That's it. So, the difference is huge. So the techniques are different. And I am surprised because in Texas, there's actually a lot of services in different places. I don't know where that city is. I don't
either. Harlingen doesn't sound familiar to me.
Right.
But there are services. I mean, we're in Austin. We have a center in Austin. We're actually thinking right now about opening also in the Dallas area and in San Antonio. But I know that there are already other providers in those areas as well. So perhaps this individual should get in touch with our operations manager, Dorothy, in our Austin office, and she's very good at helping people find the right services. Okay, great to do. And you can find the number to get a hold of her if you go to centerforautism.com, go to the locations tab. You'll be able, it's a drop-down menu, you'll be able to see all the different offices and find the one for Austin, Texas. Right. And it'll have a direct website that you can go to and a phone number that you can go to. We are working right now on setting up a new service. It's not quite ready for the world yet, but I'm thinking about, I might have mentioned it to you, I'm thinking about setting up DG's list, I remember, and it's kind of going to be a list of providers all over the country, not just in behavioral, but also anything having to do with autism, so from stores that you can buy GFCF foods to good ABA providers. We really need that. We really need the ultimate resource because I was explaining to somebody this morning that when somebody has a child that's newly diagnosed, all the different places we have to send them to in the beginning, to figure out all the different things they have to do. And everybody always says, is there no one-stop shop? Is there no one place that I can go? Well, and you never know, Shannon. Like some insurance companies will occasionally contact me and say, "Can you evaluate, or what do you think about this provider?" And sometimes, most of the time, I know them. If I don't know them, then I have nothing other than like doing a background check and going on their website. And you'll go on a website, and it's just spectacular. Like it has everything you imagine in terms of being a good provider. And then you have a conversation with the individual in charge and you realize, oh my God, like they don't even know the most basic aspects of behavior analysis. How did they ever do this? And so for parents, it's very deceiving. And the way that I'm trying to set this thing up is to have a system where other parents who've used the services will be able to vote and rate. It's kind of like like Angie's List, right? Yeah, it's like Angie's List. It's like Yelp. It's like any of those where you get other people's reviews. And I think that's probably the most valuable thing is to be able to read other people's reviews. And, obviously every organization will have good and bad reviews, but I think it's just important to be able to make those decisions yourself and know what other people have experienced. I think it's incredible. It's a thing that we definitely need. But this is why I call you a visionary, because you see a need and you fill it, and that's a wonderful thing. Or trying to get someone to help me fill it. But we love that. We should take another short break, and then we'll come back and ask a question that has a little bit to do with biomedical, so stick with us.
The Center for Autism and Related Disorders is celebrating the grand opening of the CARD Assessment Center in Woodland Hills. The CARD Assessment Center provides consultation and assessment for individuals of all ages with a variety of disorders, including autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit disorder, memory disorder, learning disability, and intellectual giftedness. To schedule an appointment, contact the CARD Assessment Center today.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. This is the part of the program where we get to ask Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, a true expert. How many years have you been working in the field of autism?
1978. I started in 1978. So what is that? 30? What are we? 2013. So that's 35.
That's amazing.
Good Lord.
But I thought you were saying 78 years. I thought you were making a joke. Yes, I've been working in the field of autism for 78 years.
I started in 78,
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
And I always say no one would believe that. You don't look old enough to have been working in anything for that many years, so that's pretty incredible. And this is your opportunity to be able to ask her questions in real time and pick her brain, get some information and some resources. This next question dips into a little bit biomedical and also the appropriateness of hours. It gets a little specific here. So I have a 31-month-old boy who was diagnosed with autism at 2. I started him on the GFCF-SF diet and already started biomedical with Dr. Rosignol. I am currently going through the regional center. So obviously here in California, we have something called the regional center. They are only giving him 10 hours of ABA, 1 hour OT, 1 hour speech. He is making some progress, but I want more hours due to the fact that everyone says 40 hours of ABA is better. Dr. Doreen mentioned that CARD has center-based ABA therapy. I called the Riverside office, but they don't offer that. I just currently got, I don't know whether it's INS or INS. I am not happy with my, it must be a provider. I don't know if I should have said that. I am not happy with my ABA provider. If I go through CARD,
I just got insurance. Oh,
insurance. That's what INS stands for.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just got insurance. I am not happy with my ABA provider. If I go through CARD, will I get more hours?
Yeah.
I think this is something that a lot of parents ask. You know, you have a funding source and they say a certain amount, and as a parent, you don't know, do I trust them? If they're tied to the purse strings, is this an accurate? So what would you like to say to that?
Okay, many things. Okay. This one, you've given me all the very good information, so I can actually help this family. First of all, we do have center-based in Riverside. So whoever you talk to in Riverside who told you we don't, I need to know their name.
Oh, there we go.
So that's number one. Second thing is, if you have insurance coverage, then your insurance becomes your primary funding source, and the regional center drops down to the last resort funding. So you shouldn't be dealing with your regional center anymore. So I'm confused as to how you are still getting insurance and regional center. That doesn't happen. What happens now is insurance takes over. Regional center is supposed to be paying things like co-pays and deductibles, which of course now the law changed, and they will be doing an analysis of your financial situation before they decide whether or not they're going to pay for that. But regardless, our assumption would be that your insurance is your carrier, is your funding source. And to answer your question, whether it's your insurance or your regional center, yes, you will. There is no way. I think they said the child is 2 to 3 years old.
31 months old.
31 months old. Your child is at the perfect age for a 40-hour program, and it really disturbs me that there is another provider out there who is suggesting and supporting a 10-hour program, because you're not giving your child a fair chance with 10 hours. And as Shannon said, as you said, Shannon, this is what the funding source does. They want to minimize because it's costly for them. And they should not be allowed to do that. And we have, in all of Orange County, including the Riverside area, fought very hard for our families. Oh, you're in Riverside, you're dealing with, I think, Inland Regional Center. Inland is a difficult regional center. We've had to actually suggest to our families to really question and legally question some of the policies that Inland has imposed. But we are trying to work things out with them and getting as much funding as we can from them. But insurance companies as a whole, we have a very good relationship with most of the carriers. both managed healthcare and insurance, and we would be happy to help you. The way that this goes is that you should contact our admissions, and our admissions is an 800 number that's on our website.
And Emily will put it up on the screen for us.
Right, and if you go through admissions, you will go and talk with some of our folks here at CARD who will guide you through this process. One of the things they'll ask for is your insurance information, and then that goes to our contracts department, and then our contracts department will verify your coverage, and we'll get information. And when I say verify, our contracts department will fight for and get coverage, if at all possible, legally. And then once we have your funding, we will get you straight through to Riverside. This is a very good time, actually, because we just started a new program at CARD, which is, actually they're upstairs. Right after this, I'm going to go and train some of our care coordinators. So what we've done is we've brought in some of our really excellent senior therapists, Shannon, and we're training them to a slightly higher level, and what they will be doing is assisting our supervisors so that all of our board certified supervisors can take on more patients, so that we can kind of attack our waiting list a little bit more. And Riverside, I know for a fact, is able to take patients right now, and they will also be able to do center-based for you. That would mean that we would be recommending, this is like the ideal child, a 3-year-old child, we'd be recommending a 40-hour program, and you would be able to bring your child in and drop them off for intervention.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
And we'd get it funded. I mean, all of it sounds really good.
And I think it's important that we note that, you know, it's so disappointing as a parent when somebody makes a recommendation for your child and you find out that it's not what's best for your child. You feel it's an emotional thing. I cried many tears over that, and I would say, what possible reason would they have to do this? And you want to vilify them and say this is a horrible, horrible thing. But there is this thought that's out there that's kind of pervasive that I would like to stamp out, but there are professionals who say, we don't want to get your hopes up, so we're going to offer you only what we know you can get. And they leave out the part where our spirit will fight for to get what is appropriate and what is best for our child.
And that's the way you describe that. That's actually, you know, sort of giving them the benefit of the doubt. What happens, just so you know, the other side, like, okay, so many, many years ago, I was offered, and I won't mention the school district, but I was offered from the head of a school district this. They literally said to me, we have 1,400 children who need help. We will refer them all to you first, as long as you never recommend more than 15 hours a week. Okay? Now, I can't tell you the number of times I've had similar offers from regional centers, from just it's ridiculous the type of stuff they come to providers and say, and let me tell you, I know very specific providers who've accepted those offers and who will, no matter what, not recommend more than 15 hours a week. And guess what? They make a lot of money because they get all the referrals, and to them, it doesn't matter if they have, you know, 2 children receiving 40 hours a week or 20 children receiving 10 hours a week. It doesn't matter to them. So
it's unconscionable.
It is unconscionable as for if you're a true professional, but this is one of the problems I have, because, you know, nothing bad about the BCBA, but the truth is the BCBA is a master's level certification, and it's not governed by a board, right? So when you're licensed, you're governed by a board. If you do something like that, the board will pull your license.
It's ethically inappropriate.
I mean, even if you don't have a conscience and you do that, you lose your license, right? I mean, but with the BCBA, you don't. They don't go after people and police them for things like this. In fact, who would even be able to prove something like that, you know? So a lot of people just kind of don't really have the training, don't have the expertise. They couldn't care less. They're not into this to try to help people recover their kids and so on. And so what happens is they don't care. The quality of their program is low. They do whatever the funding agencies dictate, and so they're not really being advocates or true professionals for the families. This is very important. That's why I get upset when a family says, oh, apparently you don't have center-based services in Riverside, because even something as small as that bothers me. It's like, wait a minute, everything we do is for the families, and to, you know, this is a child who's the exact perfect age, seems like the child has funding. We should be on this immediately. We should be helping this family immediately. Yeah. So, you know, please do follow up with our admissions office, and Amy is the person that you'll end up talking to, because she'll give you a lot of, once you get to the detailed portion of this, and mention to Amy that I wanted to know who in Riverside said we don't have center-based services, because Amy will get on that too.
Yes. And I think the takeaway for all the parents listening is that you can't take things at face value, unfortunately.
Right.
We have to be diligent. You have to, and so great that you continue to ask the question and said, I hear 40 hours, so why are they giving me 10 and I'm not settling for it?
Good for you. Yeah, absolutely. Good for you for following up on that.
And that you can ask somebody, do our services provided? I think I've shared with you before that when we went to our first intake with the regional center, and we had to fill out a card, and we were, you know, there were a whole bunch of people in this room, parents, and you had to fill out a card, and they said, you know, if you want a provider, a specific provider that you know we vendor with, write that down. And most people in that room didn't have any idea. They had no names. And I said card in big letters, because that's what I had been told. Hadn't met anybody at card yet, but that's what I was told by the family that said, this is what you have to have. And I didn't put anything else down under the second choice and handed it in to the woman, and she said, oh, we don't vendor with card. And I had been prepped, and I said, I know that's a lie. So I want card. And she said, well, you know, technically, I mean, it's not a lie. It's, we do vendor with them, but they have a waiting list that's at least 2 years. And I said, that's okay. Take my card. That's all I'm dealing with. And she said, but you should start with somebody else. And I said, no, because somebody had told me. Had I not known,
you would have
I would have said, okay, who am I with? And gotten some watered down version of something.
Right. And a lot of times you'll hear we don't vendor with card, and the real reason they don't vendor, or actually we are vendored with everyone, but the real reason they tell this to people is because we will fight to get the hours.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah, and it's all the more reason why as parents we need to fight to make sure that we get the right services card. Okay, let's take another break, and then we're going to come back with some more of your questions. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mands, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us answering your questions. We had a question from a viewer, and we actually had a bunch of questions along this line. Do you have any insight on whether or not I should apply for Social Security disability for my 2.5-year-old with ASD? What are the benefits or disadvantages of doing this? We've had a lot of questions about, should somebody do this? I
don't know very much about the type of coverage. I can't think of any downside to it. I know that some of our kids do get some assistance. It isn't much, but it's certainly worth applying. Who here would be able to give them assistance? I would imagine Bryce would know more about
Maybe I'll
this.
ask Bryce to come in and talk about, because we've had a lot of questions about this, and I know, it's different in different places in terms of all the things that are available to you, but I'm fairly certain that for Social Security disability, your child either has to be a level of disabled and or you have to make under a certain amount.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's pretty incredible how little money you have to make in order to qualify for.
Yeah. Assuming your child will qualify, I just don't know if there's a downside to applying. You know who would be good, Shannon, is maybe you should do a show where you interview Bonnie Yates.
Yes, we've been talking about having Bonnie on for a while.
Yeah.
So I'll connect with her. And Bonnie is a wonderful lawyer, special education lawyer, but she's also a mom. That we've had her son Nick on. We have him on as frequently as we can have him on. Nick just graduated from college and is right now touring Europe.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I get a little note from him or get a picture of him at the Eiffel Tower or something. He's having a wonderful summer.
He just changed his Facebook front picture.
No.
It's a picture of him and Nikki, my daughter, in Germany together.
Oh.
I was like, how did that happen? Because Nikki's visiting Germany right now, and they got together there. Yeah, it was awesome.
Nick is a wonderful communicator, and he's a wonderful traveler. And
he is. He's so well traveled.
We flew up to Seattle to cover an event, and we were at the event, and in walks Nick. And he's just amazing. He shows up all over the places. He's going places, literally and figuratively. Amazing. And his mom is a special education attorney, and his older sister, we talk about the siblings from time to time, is now a therapist. Is she still a therapist in training, or is she a full therapist now?
She's a therapist. She's a therapist at our New York office, and she's getting her teaching credential.
Amazing.
Right?
So it's an amazing family.
Wonderful family.
Truly. So we'll have to ask Bonnie to come on and talk about these kinds of things. Okay. There was a series that we started a question that it answered part of it way about a month ago, and just wanted to follow up on. Oh, that's the other part of it. Never mind. We already answered that question. I'm talking to myself.
That's okay.
Okay, this is an interesting question. Why has no one done research on what happens to teens and young adults with autism when they go through puberty? Many of these children go through mental problems which make them dangerous to themselves and others. I've not been able to take my daughter into public for 5 years because of these behaviors. All Medicaid wants to do is institutionalize her instead of helping me get a few things she needs at home that would help her to be able to deal with being in public. I am not aware of any particular studies about what happens in puberty when the hormones start to go crazy in our kids. Are you aware of anything along those lines?
There's a lot of research, actually, both boys and girls.
Okay.
Very different issues. I mean, with girls, sort of the moodiness and so on, but also just the menstruation and teaching our girls how to handle menstruation is I remember the first time, I was very, very young. I was at UCLA still, and I was studying, and I was doing a workshop, which was, I was traveling, and it was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was a school district in Illinois. It was somewhere, I don't remember exactly where it was, and I was doing a series of trainings for classrooms where a lot of the students were teenagers and the girls were just beginning menstruation. And this was a big issue because the girls were beginning to smear blood and, all kinds of stuff, which was very difficult. But there is literature, more importantly, there are behavioral treatment techniques and things that can be done to help our teens through all of this sort of stuff. I don't know exactly. I was trying to figure out what this parent was referring to, just that they need some few equipment or things that would help the child do better, be able to go out into the public. I would really suggest to this family that if you're not getting this help from Medicaid, then please apply to our nonprofit, Act Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today, and just request the dollar amount. If the dollar amount is below $5,000, and we will try to get that to you. You might not get it in the cycle where you apply, but we continue to keep your application, and in future cycles we will eventually get to you. It's very, very hard. We have now given out more than $1 million, but every fundraiser that we do, it takes so much effort and time, and the money that we raise for our families is just, there's no way that it can even come close to the number of applications that we get. I wish to God that there was a way we could increase our fundraising and just help more families, but at least that if your amount is not that high, we might be able to help you. I'm not sure what type of equipment. There's, as I said, we are happy if you contact our research department. If you're looking for specific research, then please contact our research company, Autism Research Group, ARG. Their info is all over the CARD website as well, and they have their own website as well. And I'm sure they'll easily send you all the literature that you need.
They have a survey on their website as well, Autism Research Group, where they ask always for parents to give input about what kinds of things you'd like to see studies done on, because they're constantly making their research decisions based on exactly what will help a parent right now. Right. They want it to be infinitely useful. And I will mention too that Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, who is the director of the Autism Research Group, joins us regularly on Fridays in the 11 o'clock hour, in the second hour of the program. We call it Science Beat with Dr. Tarbox, and he answers questions specifically about research. So if you have those specific questions,
that's perfect.
I love it, because when we see a new study that comes in, we can tear it apart. A lot of times in the media, something will come out, and the media headline is incendiary, right?
Yeah.
And you read the article and you go, I don't really know if this agrees with what, and I want to look at the study. And then as a parent who doesn't have a background in this kind of thing, I look at the study and I go, I have no idea what this means. And then I go, Dr. Tarbox, and he says, he has helped me so that I can now start to read through and look for certain points to see, but he will break down. If there's a study you say, I want to understand this, he'll do it right here on the air. It's amazing.
Absolutely. It'll be very helpful. And if your child, this is a girl, but if your child is a boy, then you're going to have a lot of questions surrounding sort of testosterone and how the children become a little bit more aggressive during puberty.
Yes. Right. And then if you could do a show on menopause too.
That would be lovely. Shannon and I would be watching that.
I said to Nancy Alspaugh Jackson, I'm just a hormone on a leash these days.
I know. It's so amazing.
Well, the hormone thing is difficult. These different changes in our lives. I digress, and Emily says we're out of time. That's a terrible note to end on, but a funny one. All the same, we have to keep laughing about it, right? I want to thank you so much for being here and answering these questions. And of course, if we've dealt with your question and you need more information, please write back. We've had several times that people have written back in the next week and said, here's some more information to help. Feel free to follow up with us. And those of you who wrote in on the live feature, we don't have a way of getting in touch with you. If there's something you want us to get back to you on, please send us your email address so that we can do that. And we're going to take a break and go to the A Word right now. This is the amazing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He's having the benefit of the best ABA therapy that you can get, and we drop in on their family to see the kinds of things that they're dealing with and the progress that's happening, and sometimes the emotional aspect of it for the entire family. It's really amazing. This is the A Word, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Stick with us.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
So Jack Riley is starting preschool, and we're scared because it's a big classroom. He'll have a full-time aide for at least the first month, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Is he in a classroom with typical peers or mixed classroom?
It's a mixed classroom. To be honest with you, I don't think they love him yet. You guys always treat him with love.
How many teachers are there in the classroom with them?
There's 2 and a couple assistants, and one who's supposed to be Jack's assistant, but we think she's just reassigned at the last minute to pretend she's Jack's assistant. We're going to, in fact, try to observe a little today.
After Jack Riley has been in school for 30 days, Cheryl and Mike have an IEP meeting with the school district. An IEP is an individualized education plan. It's a legal binding document that outlines plans and goals for a child.
We went to our IEP the other day, and it did not go as badly as we thought it would. What they're ultimately trying to do is to take away a lot of the structured speech and OT time. They guised it under the fact that most of his needs are social related. What they're trying to do is do a lot of what they call push-ins, which is doing his speech therapy in the classroom. The more I think about it, the more I think that that's what should be happening in the classroom at all other times. Part of our concern is that we won 2 hours of OT during the due process, and they've never given it to us. For us now to allow them to reduce it to 90 minutes with never having even gotten the 2 hours.
Did the IEP affect the ABA he was getting?
No, the ABA right now is being provided by our regional center because I have a self-funded insurance plan that denied ABA coverage. So it is being provided by the regional center, but that's contingent upon us getting a certain amount of services from the school district. So it's all so interconnected and so scary because if one slips, then the other one does too.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. Thrilled to be here with you.
Hey, pal.
You look beautiful as always.
Well, you look beautiful. I'm loving the way the hair is growing out.
The hair has got to be trimmed.
And you're giving me a little courage because under this blonde is white. Now back here,
that's some white.
Now back here is gray that I dye blonde.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking I'm getting a little courage from you because I want to go see if I was all white, I'd do it.
Well, I thought that too, but the gray is mostly in the back on me.
Yeah,
so,
that's probably how mine is. I may go for it. I think you're very fearless to do this.
Well, it wasn't. It was.
Well, shaving your head was pretty fearless.
It wasn't. It was a small thing to do.
All right.
It was a small thing to do, and it worked out well for me. I'm not having to dye my hair anymore. So
I'm loving it.
I got big benefits.
Okay, so we got a lot of controversy to talk in the news, which we usually start the show with.
Yeah.
We have some controversy because Jenny McCarthy has been named co-host of The View.
Yes, and the firestorm that has created has been very
storm, very interesting, and I just can't believe all these people frothing at the mouth to get her fired. I mean, vehemently protesting Jenny having anything to do with being on network television because of a choice she made to, first of all, not vaccinate her son after she felt that vaccines played a role in the onset of his autism. Now, the first thing I have to say about this is I find it sort of surprising there's such a strong reaction.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, you never see people come out like this. Like, I remember when Kelly Preston and John Travolta said that Jet, their son, who they said had Kawasaki disease, that it was caused by what they thought was carpet cleaner.
Right.
Now, the whole world didn't come out attacking this couple for saying they thought carpet cleaner, the stuff in carpet cleaners. And Jenny is not alone, certainly, in feeling that vaccines, she has sort of rectified her initial statements of saying vaccines cause autism to say she believes they played a role in her son's regression because he had febrile seizures after his vaccines.
Right.
And that's when his regression started. So she has basically said, I don't think vaccines cause autism. I think we need to look at the vaccine schedule. I think we need to look at how many vaccines our children are getting. And in my particular case, I believe this. So, but suddenly people are saying that she's responsible for the deaths of thousands of children.
Yeah, there's a website that has the Jenny McCarthy body count on it, and it lists the number of children that supposedly, I have it here somewhere, that have supposedly died from illnesses that could have been prevented.
Yes.
And it attributes them to Jenny McCarthy, which to me is a bit of a stretch.
A bit of a stretch. Now, it has caused many protests. Amy Pisani of Every Child by Two stated that her anti-immunization stance, she wrote to Barbara Walters and Bill Getty, that unfounded claims that vaccines cause autism have been one of the greatest impediments in public health in recent decades, and that McCarthy's assertions have spread fear among young parents, increased number of children not receiving life-saving vaccines. And James Ponywazik, a television critic for Time magazine, criticized the choice as giving her implicit credibility and suggested that her scaremongering is up for debate. And there is a huge movement in Canada. They're signing petitions to get her taken off the air. It goes on and on and on. The New Yorker, many credible magazines have attacked her for this.
Yeah.
And ABC has been pretty quiet. They haven't really made any statements. But one thing that they did say is that they selected Jenny because what they found was the ratings on the show went up when the co-host talked about sex.
Oh.
And Jenny loves to talk about sex.
Yeah.
She's very open about that. She's also been very provocative. Obviously, she was a Playmate of the Year. She's posed totally nude. She did it recently.
Yeah.
She's posed in some pretty, I would say...
questionable?
Questionable, pictures of her with her pants down around her ankles on the toilet.
On the toilet. That's the one that I always point to that I go, okay, really?
Yeah. I think my issues with Jenny are a lot less about her stance on vaccines than they are about some of her choices just as a woman. But I certainly don't, my feeling is the vitriol, the backlash against her is completely out of line. And there are people that make choices about their children every day. Do we attack somebody for, putting their child on a vegan diet because, people say that you need protein? No.
Right.
I mean, this is really, really overkill.
It does make you ask, why is everybody so angry and why do they care so much? As I was looking through the research, and the thing that came up over and over and over again in all the different articles and blogs that have been written about her is that they are attributing the decline in vaccinations to Jenny McCarthy. I think it's dangerous when we start saying that people will just blithely follow a celebrity because I am an autism parent and I have watched a lot of what Jenny McCarthy has said, and I have seen her say time and time again, I'm not anti-vaccine, but I have questions.
Yes.
And why wouldn't we ask questions? I think that that's a reasonable way to ask questions, but I would never do something just because Jenny McCarthy wasn't doing it.
No.
And I don't think you would either.
No.
And I don't know any autism parents who would just do something because we didn't all run out and take pictures of ourselves on the toilet with our panties around our ankle reading a book. So the idea that an autism parent's going to see Jenny McCarthy's choice that she made with her child, and suddenly we're all going to go brain dead and go do the exact same thing, I think that's a really big stretch.
As do I, and I also don't believe that The View will even touch the subject of vaccines. I think they'll stay away from it with a 10-foot pole because of the controversy.
Well, and you know what? I mean, it's one of those topics that we don't delve into the vaccine thing very often here because the information, quite frankly, my opinion is that anybody who says one way or the other that it does or doesn't have all the facts.
I agree. And because of that, I did think it was necessary to pull from the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which is the government program for vaccine injuries, some statistics that people really should hear. For the other side, since the National Vaccine Injury Compensation claims were filed in 1989, 3,309 compensation awards have been made. Okay, that means 3,309 individuals have been compensated for vaccine injuries. Over 2.5 billion in compensation awards have been paid to petitioners, and over 102.1 million have been paid to cover attorney fees. To date, 9,630 claims have been dismissed. Of those, 4,248 claimants were paid over $55.2 million to cover attorney fees and legal costs. So the bottom line is that over $2.5 billion in compensation awards have been paid to vaccine injuries. So it is a outright lie that vaccines are completely safe.
For all kids.
For all kids.
Because we know, I mean, statistically we know that lots of kids can go and get a vaccine and they don't have any kind of adverse reaction. We know that. But clearly it is not a one-size-fits-all world. And there are, you know, the courts have paid claims for children.
So it's right there in the courts.
So, you know, we can't say that that all kids are going to react the same way to this. And so, you know, it is a big controversy. I don't think anybody has the answer. I certainly don't have the answer. But to say that this woman can't continue to make a living because we're afraid of what she's going to think next and we're afraid of who she's going to influence, I just find that really suspect.
I do too.
You know, and I don't agree with everything that Jenny McCarthy says. I don't agree with everything that you say, and I hope that you don't agree with everything that I say. But I can sit here and I adore you, and I appreciate your opinion on things that I don't necessarily agree with. And if we're going to stop having a conversation, where are we living?
Exactly.
We need to be able to have people speak their opinions. Where's the freedom of speech here? If that's Jenny's opinion,
where is the freedom
of speech? And in fact, every time I've seen her, she has said, I am not anti-vaccine, but I have questions.
And that's exactly what I say. As you know, I've said that publicly many times. I'm not anti-vaccine. I do not believe vaccines cause autism, but with some children with immune-challenged systems, I do believe they play a role.
And I completely concur with you there. And I have questions. And I want to live in a society and live in a country where I'm allowed to ask my questions and not lose my ability to make a living to support my child.
And Shannon, you'll probably agree with me on this. I don't think there's been any studies done on this, but I would venture to say that if you polled every mother of every child with autism in this country, the overwhelming percentage would say they believe vaccines play a role.
Well, in fact, in the Age of Autism, in their article about this, they have done a poll, and obviously it's going to be slightly different for their site, but they are saying that over 54% say that they believe that it plays a role.
So all of these moms can't be crazy. We're talking about our own experience.
Exactly. And if the court, obviously, and they paid lawyer fees as well, clearly there have been incidences where a child has had a difficulty and had an injury as a result of it. So we're not talking about unicorns here. But everybody needs to make the choice for themselves. And I think that people do. I don't think that, you know, if we were to say that Jenny McCarthy really had the ability, how omnipotent would Jenny McCarthy be if she could really sway all of us to go and do something else? And then absolutely she should have her own show if she's that omnipotent. I just don't think she is.
And certainly there's a lot more big money behind promoting the vaccine schedule as it stands now.
And I would also like to point out that you brought up the one one quote from the Amy Pisani from Every Child by Two, who really led the battalion of let's get her ousted out of this job. And Every Child by Two is sponsored by pharmaceutical companies, and they are a part of the sponsorship for that site. So
another interesting study that I think it would also be interesting to see how many celebrities and how many people in positions of influence actually vaccinate their children.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
There is a very prominent pediatrician here in Los Angeles who treats many celebrities, Dr. Jay Gordon, and he recommends not vaccinating, and most of his parents don't. So, I think it'd be interesting when some of these people are like Jenny McCarthy and certainly Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who has been largely discredited at this point. It'd be interesting if they asked some of the interviewers, did you vaccinate?
Well, when Dr. Oz did his big show on autism, which was a very controversial program, at one point somebody said, so Dr. Oz, for your children, did you vaccinate them on the schedule that exists that Jenny has said, perhaps we should question this? And he said, on this matter, I deferred to my wife, and so no, we did not vaccinate on the schedule that is recommended by the American Pediatric Society. That was Dr. Oz. And he said, but I defer to my wife. And some things you have to defer to your wife.
Do you think that the new prince will be vaccinated?
Can I say to you that the saddest thing, when I got in my car the other day and I heard that it was a boy, I was like, oh, how lovely, it was a boy. And the very next second, I thought, oh, he has a 1 in 50 chance
of having autism. I know. I'm just curious as to whether they'll vaccinate him on the schedule.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to know.
Okay.
In any case, we've got some really exciting guests today.
We do. We have in our next segment.
Yes.
We're going to talk to the owner and founders of QR Code ID, and we're going to tell you about that when we come back.
And so we'll have Aaron and Bruce Wilson with us. So stick with us.
Okay.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because
without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get 2 kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community. Welcome, and we are back with our special guest. We have Aaron and Bruce Wilson with us, and you are the owners and founders of QR Code ID. What is QR Code ID?
Well, there are individualized QR codes printed on shirts and pins that when a person wanders off and becomes lost, the person that finds them can scan that with a smartphone and get their contact, emergency, and behavioral information that's all in their profile. Or they can go to the website, qrcodeid.org, and manually enter the number, that's the unique number associated with the QR code, and also view the profile that way.
Yeah, we were trying to make something that was really easy for anybody that knows how to use the internet, which almost all of us do now.
Right.
So, because some people can scan and have that, knowledge in the apps and all that sort of thing, and other people would just be like, "Oh, what's this? Oh, there's a web address," and then it prompts you through to put the number in.
Okay, that's great. Now, I want to know how you came up with this idea.
Well, our son, he's 11, and he has autism. He has
As is mine. What's your little boy's name?
Jay.
Jay, and I have Wyatt, who's 11, and Shannon has Jim, who's 10. So we're all very close there. We're probably on the same journey together.
Probably
So tell us about how your son maybe inspired this idea. Well, he has been lost a couple times. One time was at school, another time was at camp. So thank God both experiences we found out about afterwards and didn't have to go through that horror. But so we just wanted to come up with a way to, because he is low verbal, to communicate for him.
Okay.
So this would give his information, his name, our contact information, and anything else about his behaviors that we want to communicate. We have him count to 10 slowly. That'll calm him down. So any kind of instructions that you'd want a first responder to know can be in the profile.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So they can really tailor, if they've got a child that's been found, it can give them tools to help calm that child down and in case law enforcement or whoever has found him doesn't know how to deal with the child.
Exactly. One of our members has in her adult son's profile, do not restrain him.
Okay.
So they know the best way to interact with him and not upset him more.
So how long has this been in creation now, QR code?
Well, we've been working on it for around a year, but we've just gone live. Our website just went up recently. And so it's right now most of our efforts are in education and letting the world know who we are and things like that. And we're starting to get some members and some positive stories and things like that.
Now you mentioned members. It works on a membership basis?
Yes.
Tell us how that works.
Well, there's a small annual fee, but each member, they get to have their own QR code, and then they have their own profile with the information they can be changing in real time. And then there's also a secure area to each membership where they can keep, doctors, phone numbers, medications, anything they'd want right on hand for if they have to go to the emergency room, that they can just, put in their password. And
Yeah, so that's if someone were to find someone, they would see the semi-public thing, which would say, my name is John, my caregiver's Laurie, and this is her telephone number, and these are, the things that would help me. And then there's a button that you can click, and, even for the babysitter, you can put babysitting information. He goes to bed at 10, he likes melatonin or whatever.
Excellent.
And so that people that don't know you don't see that information.
Right. Okay.
But it could also be a communication between all the different caregivers, like the speech therapist. Sometimes you have a few different ones working with your child.
Yes.
They could say, this plan's working, this plan's not, because it's been hard throughout the years keeping everybody on the same page.
Sure.
So they can just jot little notes in there and communicate that way.
Yeah, look out, he's super hyper today.
Yeah, he didn't sleep last night, or,
Okay, very good. Now, you offer products like the T-shirts. What are the ways that the individual or the child can display their code?
Okay, it's printed direct to garment.
Okay.
On the shirts, we also have long sleeves and hoodies and button downs. So this is also for people who have Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And so we wanted something that seniors would also like. So we have the button downs and polo shirts. And we also have it on pins and Velcro and adhesives and magnets, so it can be used in a lot of different ways.
Great.
And the clip-ons.
Yeah, and we're also doing vinyl printing, so it can be heat pressed onto any shirt. And we have a thing, we haven't put it on the website yet, but we're about to make it so that for a nominal fee, people can send us their existing clothes and we can put it on their shirts. And
because a lot of our kids have their favorite. Superman shirt.
Sure. Yeah. Or something they wear, an outer garment they might wear.
Yeah, and then they already feel comfortable in it.
But what I love, I just was noticing this shirt, I love sort of this outdoor motif on this. And, clearly, if a parent was going to a place like a Disneyland or, let's say, a national park or something where there might be more of a chance of, in a crowd, a child eloping, that this kind of shirt would be a great thing to wear anyway to a place like that. And I like that you've got so many different applications. So if a child doesn't want to wear a bracelet, or if a child doesn't want to wear something that they might have sensory issues with, they can have other options. So some of your artwork is done by some special artists. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah, this is dear to our hearts. We have 4 different artists so far who have special needs. The woman, this is her special doggie named Bridget. So this is called Bridget's Dream. She lives here in Southern California. Her name's Megan Peterson. Here is hers on a long sleeve.
Okay.
And then we also have an artist named Mickey Zwaroff, and he lives in New York, and this is called Under the Sea. And he was has a hard time showing pride in things he does. He's an adult now, and his dad called me and said when he got the shirt, he could tell his son was very proud.
Yeah, smiling.
So that was so very touching to us.
Wonderful. And they're beautiful designs. I mean, I would wear these T-shirts.
Definitely. And, we wanted it to be not like, I have autism, you have to accept me. Our kids are acceptable, We wanted it to be like, I'm awesome, and don't you love my shirt?
Right.
I'm cool.
Yeah, and we have a couple of other artists that are going to be featured artists that have a lot of work, and that's going to be on our site soon. And we also have a person that has their own T-shirt company that we're going to send the codes to, and they'll heat press our codes on their shirts. So we're sort of expanding that way.
Okay, great.
Yeah, our new artist that we're going to bring in, he's a hip guy, and a lot of his have like graffiti kind of look to it. Right. So it'd be cool for the 13-year-old boys.
Yeah. Sort of that skatewear, surfy T-shirt look, right?
Yeah, we're really hip, but we let our daughter make those decisions.
Okay. So once again, the benefits of membership, can we kind of cover those again? What you get when you become a member? What is it? How much is it to become a member?
It's just $29 a year.
Oh, that's very
so
reasonable.
It's very, very reasonable.
Yeah, okay.
And then our shirts are very reasonable too. And then we sell a packet of the pins, like 3 for $5.25.
Okay.
Because we really just want this to be affordable for people. We know a lot of people are in restricted incomes, and then a lot of goes towards our kids' services. And we really feel it's going to help people and save lives, so we want to get it out there.
Okay. And the website is
QRCodeID.org.
Yeah, we should practice that. Do it together. 2, 3, 4.
QRCodeID.org.
That's a simple one. And so Emily has put that up, our director, and it's a wonderful idea, and I congratulate you. And isn't it interesting the way being the parent of a child with autism leads to all of these adventures that we never thought we'd do?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
It's a whole new world now.
Right. We believe that what is your so-called disability is an opportunity, you know, to discover new things about yourselves. And I congratulate you for coming up with this great idea.
Thank you.
So hopefully we've gotten you some exposure, and a lot of our parents that need this service have heard about it today. So thank you so much for joining us. Okay.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So we will be back with more in just a minute.
I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are here at the Gluten Free Expo. We're really excited about it. Can't wait to give you a look at all the tasty things there are to try. We are here at the Breads from Anna booth. You have been helping my family for a long time. So first of all, tell us a little bit about how this came to be.
Okay, well, I was diagnosed at age 16 with type 1 diabetes. And then in my 30s, I got celiac disease. And a lot of the products that existed at that point just weren't working for me. So I made my first mix, which was gluten, soy, rice, and nut-free. And then my sister was diagnosed with celiac, and she has Hashimoto's, so she can't digest lactose. And she was allergic to corn. So I made a mix for her, and I had these 2 little mixes on my website, and then the autism community started reaching out to me for a yeast-free mix. And then my nephew was diagnosed with autism. So we have stuck to really trying to make our products as free as possible of the top 8 allergens. We're free of so many of those trigger foods that they work well for these kids. And the bean flours we use are pre-soaked, so they're easier to digest.
And it tastes good. That's the most important thing. It tastes really good.
And I truly believe there's healing that happens from the pleasure that you get from eating, and I want people to feel that they're not making a sacrifice by having to be on a special diet.
Where can people get them?
There is a store locator on our website, so you can check that out. And we encourage people to ask stores to bring it in if they have a store they like to shop at that we're not in.
We are here right now at the Bob's Red Mill Natural Foods booth. You know, you've heard me talk about them on the show before. I love them.
The 2 hot items are coconut flour and almond flour. They're just rocking because they please a lot of audiences. They've got the gluten-free. They please the paleo. They're not grain, so they can please a lot of audiences. And as far as the mixes, you know, we're always the pizza crust, the cornbread, and then our oats are still just right up there. So, and we have over 100 products now that are certified gluten-free. So we're trying to please all audiences with that.
We are here at one of the most popular booths, the Udi's booth. Tell us some of the things that might be good for a GFCF diet.
Perfect. So all of our products, with the exception of the cookies and the brownie bites, are milk-free, casein-free, and they're made in separate, dedicated facilities. So basically anything here other than cookies and brownie bites is good. For kids, the granola, because it's chocolate. And then we have things like double vanilla muffins that can double as cupcakes. And if you can do like a sugar-free frosting, milk-free frosting, then it's even better.
We are here with the author of Gluten is My... a very incendiary title.
Well, when I was diagnosed with celiac 2.5 years ago, my initial reaction was, "What? Are you serious that I can no longer eat a major food group?" It blew my mind, and everywhere I looked, I found inspirational, yay, yay, and I was like, this will not do. And I instantly started my blog, Gluten is my out of total craziness, and it developed into a book.
The subtitle of it is Rants, Recipes, and Ridiculousness for the Gluten-Free. So a little bit of everything then, stories and recipes.
Yes, it's personal stories. It's a guide on how to get through this time in your life. It's also, there's information if your child is diagnosed, there's travel information, and there's also a chapter on the future of gluten-free and what it means for all of us that are suffering through a lack of donuts.
We are here at the Enjoy Life booth. Tell us about what Plentals are. We just tried it, and it rocked our world.
Well, Plentals are a lentil-based snack. And the great thing about Plentals is 3 of the 4 flavors are dairy-free. So there's no gluten, there's no casein. All of our products are gluten-free and free of the 8 common allergens, which means they're free of egg, dairy, wheat, soy, peanut, tree nut, fish, and shellfish.
But it's not the only product that you guys have. You have a wide range of products that you guys carry, right?
That's right. We make 38 different products. Again, everything that we make is certified gluten-free as well as free of the 8 common allergens. So the great thing about Enjoy Life is when you see the Enjoy Life red logo on any package, you know it's safe, and you know it's safe for everybody. And, a lot of people ask us, well, how do you make it taste so good? Because if it doesn't taste great, no one cares. And so we like to tell them it's a little bit of magic, it's a whole lot of love that we're able to do this and replicate all these different flavors. So, for instance, we have a brand new line of decadent bars, which are s'mores, cinnamon bun, cherry cobbler, and chocolate sun butter. And again, all free of the 8 common allergens. The other thing with all of our products, they're all verified non-GMO. So we have the most gluten-free products that are verified non-GMO by the Non-GMO Project.
For more information about a healthy, tasty, gluten-free diet, make sure to watch our cooking segment, What's Left, co-sponsored by Taka.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Fragile X. You've heard the term. Most of us don't know what it means. So here to answer some of our questions, Dr. Gary Feldman. And Dr. Feldman is the medical director of the Stramsky Developmental Center and Miller's Children's Hospital in Long Beach, California. And he is here to tell us, what is Fragile X? Dr. Feldman.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. What is Fragile X? This is a genetic condition. It is the most common inheritable form of intellectual disability and occurs in approximately 1 in 4,000 in the population. Being a genetic condition, it's inherited. Usually as an X-linked condition. In other words, it's usually coming from, could be a mother or a father carrying the X chromosome. And it tends to affect boys much more than girls because boys only have 1 X chromosome and 1 Y, whereas girls have 2. So if they get the condition, they have 1 affected chromosome and 1 normal, so it kind of washes out the effect. So why would I be talking about Fragile X syndrome on a program that's dealing with autism? And the reason is because about 30% of these children that have this condition will actually have autism. And in fact, about maybe between 4 and 7% of children that are diagnosed in the beginning de novo with autism may end up actually having.
Oops, he's frozen just a little bit, and we might need to reconnect with him. But I'm so glad that he started answering the question about why are we talking about this because it comes up in autism conversations all the time.
It does, and I think we don't. I never knew what the relationship was.
I didn't either.
Yeah,
I knew the first thing when Jem got diagnosed, they sent us across the hallway to get blood drawn to rule out Fragile X.
Okay.
So that was the first thing that got discussed when Jem was diagnosed, and it came back negative. But I hear about Fragile X a lot, and always wondered, why is this so much of a conversation? Because we know it isn't as prevalent, but hopefully we're going to be able to get He's back.
He's
Dr.
back.
Feldman is
Okay.
back.
Dr. Feldman, you're back. Dr. Feldman, we were just saying you answered so many of our questions because I had here, first of all, are there ways, what's the relationship with autism? Is there a genetic predisposition? And you have told us that it is genetic in nature. Is there a way to test for this prior to families starting a family?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a genetic test. It might help to understand. I'll be very sort of brief in terms of what the underlying mechanism is.
Okay.
So being a genetic condition, they've identified that the problem is on the X chromosome, and what actually happens is there's a gene that is designed to manufacture a protein called Fragile X mental retardation protein, which is an awful sounding name. And every one of us who are not affected with Fragile X actually have this protein. So you might think, oh my gosh, mental retardation protein. Firstly, it's a horrendous name, but we all need this protein to function normally. Now, on this chromosome, when you have the defect, what actually happens is this gene, without getting into too many details, develops what they call these trinucleotide repeats. And the more of these repeats that you have, the more likely you are to have the condition. So to diagnose Fragile X syndrome, you need to have 200 or more of these CGG repeats in order to sort of have what we call the full mutation. But that's not all. It also depends on what we call methylation. In other words, if the gene is methylated, it means that it's turned off. So individuals that have sort of the full condition of Fragile X will often have more than 200 of these CGG repeats, as well as being fully methylated. And having said all that, I lost the track of your question.
The train of the question, though, is very interesting. The train of the question was, is there a test that can be done, a prenatal test for Fragile X?
Right, and so part of the genetic testing is actually what they do is they test for these CGG repeats. And this can be done prenatally as well. So they can do the test and see, well, do you have more than 200 repeats, which would make you a full mutation, or could you be a carrier? And so what happens is, for instance, if a mother is a carrier, she would have between 55 and 200 of these CGG repeats, which means that she may actually function completely normally, although carriers may have certain issues that they have to deal with, but in all intents and purposes, they are functioning normally. And many carriers don't even know that they are carriers. But then once they produce a child, the chances of them producing a child who has the full mutation is much, much greater. So, yeah, there is a prenatal test, and you can also test postnatally under certain conditions. And the most common conditions of why you should test a child for Fragile X syndrome would be 1, if they have intellectual disability, 2, if they have autism, or 3, if you have a child who has, say, speech and language impairments and maybe some other issues, maybe a little bit of intellectual disability, maybe some social issues, social avoidance behavior, you may be inclined to want to test for Fragile X syndrome.
And what would that test be, Dr. Feldman?
It's a blood test, just a genetic blood test.
And is this common to, let's say, I mean, my child has autism. I don't know if he's been tested for Fragile X. You said Jim has.
When we lost you, I said the very first thing when the doctor diagnosed autism, she sent us across the hallway to draw blood for a Fragile X test, which came back negative. But it was the very first thing that she did, and I've always thought that was interesting because I hear from lots of parents that they've never gotten tested.
For Fragile X, is this something that is recommended for any child with autism to be tested for Fragile X?
Absolutely, it is. Let me give you a quick anecdote. I saw a patient the other day with autism who's been a patient of mine intermittently for years, lost to follow-up for a few years, and I actually inherited this patient when I started here. And at the last visit, I was looking at him, and I noticed that he had some behaviors that were a little bit different. He had a sort of extreme gaze avoidance, but extreme, to the point where, he would like turn his head to the side, and almost be afraid to make any facial or eye contact whatsoever. And that's one of the behaviors that's very common in kids with Fragile X. So I asked some questions. I said, has he been tested for Fragile X? And the mom said, no, but I'm a carrier. So yes, the answer is that it is prudent in any child that's been diagnosed with autism is actually to do the genetic testing. So you may say, well, why?
Yes, my next question.
Yeah, what difference is it going to make?
Why? how are we going to take that information and use it to help our child?
Okay, so the difference is essentially falls into two camps. The one is, it's a genetic condition. So, you've produced a child with Fragile X, which means where did this come from? So a parent is a carrier. And this has implications in terms of if you're planning to have other kids, what are the chances of your progeny having this condition? So it's got to do with family planning, but it's also got to do with Fragile X associated conditions, because women that are Fragile X carriers are at risk of having what we call FAX-POI, which is Fragile X associated premature ovarian failure or insufficiency. So they have early menopause. Usually older men that are carriers have a much higher risk of actually developing a sort of Parkinson's type condition with dementia. So it really does have ramifications in that sense.
It sounds like there's so much conclusive research on this. I'm kind of thinking, why do we not know this kind of thing about autism? It's very interesting. Has there been, is there adequate funding to explore Fragile X as an expert in the field, being that you are?
No, funding is always an issue, and there's some really exciting research that's taking place right now looking at targeted treatment for individuals with Fragile X. Without getting into too many details, there are a number of drug companies right now, as well as individual universities that are actually looking at ways to address the effects of what causes Fragile X sort of at a molecular level. Because the theory is that because you don't have this Fragile X mental retardation protein, which acts as a sort of a controller to stop a rampant, uncontrolled protein development in the brain. So if you can kind of control this without having this controller protein, if there are other ways that you can control this unregulated protein deposition in the brain, you may be able to actually change the picture, or maybe minimize the symptoms, or maybe more than that, prevent this theoretically from even occurring.
Well, that sounds interesting.
What is the treatment?
Yes.
If you have a child, they've been born, they are diagnosed with Fragile X and autism, let's say, what treatment is there for treatment and care are there for Fragile X?
Okay, so the treatments are very similar to the treatments that you would do for children with autism. For instance, you've got the behavioral treatments, and that may, we don't have to go into details. A lot of behavioral treatments, we've got the learning supports, the speech therapies, et cetera, and then, you may have to resort to medications. So in terms of behavior, essentially you're dealing with very similar things. You're dealing with emotion regulation issues. You're dealing with anxiety. Now, kids with Fragile X have extremely high anxiety levels, really, really high, much higher than what you would expect in a child with typical autism. They often have ADHD-like symptoms, difficulties with concentration, difficulties with hyperactivity, impulsivity, and then may have aggressive outbursts and a lot of self-injurious behavior. It's not uncommon for these kids to do excessive hand biting, and a lot of our patients actually have huge scars on their wrists and fingers from biting, from the sort of stimming type behaviors. So, there are medications that we would use very similar to autism for that. But in terms of the sort of behavioral and learning supports, these children have very sort of almost specific types of the autism has its own little nuances. In essence, yes, a lot of them do not communicate well. They have profound speech and language delays, but they seem to be more aware of what's going on around them in terms of language, and their receptive language, or their comprehension, is usually a little bit better than kids with a typical form of autism. And so the way you deal with them and the way the interventions have to kind of be fine-tuned to adjust for the relative strengths and their weaknesses.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So, doctor, would you recommend that any parent that has a child that's been diagnosed with autism get a blood test to find out if their child has Fragile X?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And is this kind of blood test available through their pediatrician, or do you need to go to a specialist?
This can be done through any doctor's office. All you're really asking for is a DNA analysis for Fragile X.
Okay.
I mean, that's really what the test is.
Now, you brought up methylation before, and so in the autism community, when we start talking about methylation, of course, what comes up is doing methyl B12 shots. Is that found to be at all effective with kids with Fragile X?
Yeah, so just we've got a semantic issue here. So I'm talking about methylation in the context of genetic testing.
Okay.
Not in the context of treatments.
Okay.
Right now, no, B12 and vitamins have not been shown to be effective. However, having said that, generally speaking, there may be some benefit with antioxidants in preventing or slowing down the progress of this condition, but it is still kind of highly theoretical right now.
Now, when you say the progress of the condition, is it progressive, and does the child, does it worsen as the child ages?
It doesn't necessarily worsen in the context, in the sense of, well, you know, like you're talking about dementia or something, you know,
Yes.
where like a degenerative condition. It doesn't. It's not a degenerative condition, but you know, the brain is constantly plastic, and the neurons are constantly changing. And so, if we were able to control the neuronal plasticity and the sort of what we call synaptic pruning, you may actually theoretically again improve the conditions. So, you know, the body, in terms of antioxidants, the body is constantly doing things all the time, and what you try, if it's doing bad things all the time, you're trying to stop bad things from happening. So it's really it's sort of trying to find things that will regulate and stabilize a condition so that you can actually make gains rather than keeping a condition as a status quo. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and might some of these treatments, Dr. Feldman, be applicable to autism when a child has a diagnosis solely of autism?
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. In fact, you know, some of the research that's taking place for Fragile X, some of the products actually have been studied in typical autism as well. You know, without getting into details, the sort of mGlu-R5 theory and looking at how you can actually stop this unwanted production of protein. And so some of these study drugs actually have been used in kids with autism and are still being looked at. But provisionally, these drugs may be helpful in terms of social avoidance behavior. They may be helpful in terms of promoting speech development. They may be helpful in terms of reducing anxiety and possibly even hyperactivity. And some of these drugs are actually being studied right now, even in adults, for treating depression, and may have promise.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Now, we want to get to we want to get to the Fragile X Association of Southern California.
And we're almost out of time, but we especially want people to be able to have someplace to go if they have more questions. Emily has been showing the Fragile X Southern California website as you've been talking. Is that the best place for them to go for more information?
Yeah, that's a great resource, a local resource for anything related to Fragile X syndrome. And of course, you know, there's always the National Fragile X Foundation. And you can just Google that. And I think I sent you, I think that maybe I have a link that I sent. National Fragile X Foundation is a huge repository on Fragile X, much like the Autism Speaks website. It's a huge repository.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about the Fragile X Association of Southern California and what their mission is, and do they have events that the public can support?
Right, so their mission primarily was a twofold mission. The one is really to promote awareness of Fragile X syndrome, and certainly, you know, just like the platform you're giving us now, it really helps us and helps them promote the knowledge about Fragile X. And the other thing also is to provide a forum of support for families. You know, these parents and kids get very stressed, just like any family with autism. So it's a support system, support group, helping to advocate, helping to educate, and then also indirectly support scientific research. They're a non-profit, but they're able to support in the sense of, you know, helping recruit patients that may be, or parents and patients that may be interested in some of the studies that are taking place. And then next year, in 2014, they will be actually hosting the International Fragile X Brain Freeze conference.
Yes.
In Orange County.
In Anaheim.
Okay.
So they've got a big task ahead, and there's a lot of fundraising and organizing that's required.
Well, Dr. Feldman, I mean, you have been a wealth of information.
Yes,
I've certainly
so
learned about this, and I'm going to definitely go back and make sure that Wyatt was tested. I do believe he did get that test. But the bottom line is that if you have a child with autism, you should test for Fragile X. There are ways to treat this condition. It's very important to know if you're a carrier, and there is help. Dr. Feldman, thank you so much for joining us today.
We're going to
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break and come back to close out the show with some information about when you are getting compounded medicines from a pharmacy.
Yes,
so stick with us.
and how you can keep getting it.
Yes, stick with us.
Say hi, we say hi. Let's get wild, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman, Executive Director of TACA. We're gonna bake again.
All right.
It's my lovely assistant.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lucero.
We heard so many people go, I want a decent chocolate chip cookie for my kid to eat. We've got all our dry ingredients. So I've got the flour, I've got the flaxseed meal, baking soda, baking powder, our gum, or xanthan gum.
Great.
So we're gonna get started in the mixer here. So those are dry ingredients. I do have brown sugar. We did cut this down. And the one way to do that is my favorite, and that's maple syrup. I'm using egg for this recipe, but we could use more arrowroot and also the flaxseed meal. So I'll go ahead and throw my eggs in here, which I love doing. So, and then the last thing is a shortening and gluten-free, casein-free butter replacement. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this in. I've let it sit out for a while so it's nice and soft. So let's go ahead and mix this thing well. These are dairy-free, soy-free, and I really like them. Again, Enjoy Life is a great product. It's also net-free. And chocolate chips are a personal thing. I won't judge you if you use the whole bag.
I would.
I know, right? So here we go. Great recipe. It's the nice consistency. Everything's ready to go, so we can enjoy our cookies here in just about 10 minutes. We want to give it kind of like a couple inches between each cookie. You know, a lot of people are really concerned about aluminum, so what I've done is I laid down my natural brown parchment paper, and Jen's helping out putting the cookies down. So we're separating the nice baked good that's all organic from the aluminum cookie sheets. So let's go put these in. So magic oven allows me to pull the last ones out. And voila.
Yum, that's good.
Really great cookies. I'll let you have a bite so you can do my Vanna White there too. Yeah, these taste pretty good.
Really good.
We're going to come back later after I gain 5 pounds and eat this entire tray.
For sure.
You know, more feedback is good. So if there's something you want us to convert, like another recipe or maybe a relative made, just let us know, autismlive@gmail.com. You can go to Facebook, or there's thousands of recipes on the TACA website just waiting for you to explore. You can go to TACANOW, TACANOW.org, and we'll see you next time at Autism Live.
Bye.
We say hi, we say hi. Let's get wild, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
We're having a little drink from our Puritas here.
Our Puritas Organic Gold, who are our sponsors at Act Today, and they're going to be giving us money back for every bottle sold. So
make sure you buy some of that.
Go on their website, Puritas Gold, and find out where it is available.
Alkalizing water, very good for you.
Healthy.
We also wanted to give you some information. I promised earlier in the week that we were going to give you some information. There is a bill that's coming before the Senate this week. I'm not sure which day this week. Senate Bill S959. It's for Pharmaceutical Compounding Quality and Accountability Act. Of course, you guys know that last year there was an accident that happened at a compounding pharmacy, and medicine that was meant for people who had immune issues. There was an outbreak of meningitis.
Yes.
And it caused a great deal of concern, and we understand that everybody needs to be safe, but unfortunately this bill has gone so far that it will seriously restrict, for those of us who have children on the autism spectrum, being able to get medicines compounded at our pharmacy.
Such as methyl B12,
such
which
as
is
methyl B12.
very commonly prescribed.
And anybody who has hormone replacement therapy, pain, autism spectrum disorder, or anything that you get compounded for your pet. If you have allergies to things, we have allergies in our family, so we use our compounding pharmacy. Those things are all in danger. They're asking you to go to www.protectmycompounds.com. That's protectmycompounds.com. They'll get you can get information. You can get they have a form letter that you can send to your senator
to your
to say, hey, you know what, you're stepping on my toes here.
Right. We don't want this right taken away.
Right. So important. We also have another fundraiser that we should mention. We had Robert Thornton on from Paper Clouds Apparel yesterday. That my son's T-shirt.
Yes, I love his robot.
Isn't it fun? And right now it's being sold limited edition only these 2 weeks, starting this Monday.
Please
and 50%,
buy one. A tote bag, a T-shirt.
Oh, the tote bag is so
darling.
Cute. 50% of the proceeds go directly to Autism Care and Treatment Today, Nancy's wonderful organization.
Thank you. And I want to thank Jim for designing this.
He's so thrilled.
I think it's just great.
More thrilled.
And I love the robot.
And can I tell you, he's so excited about the fact that it has the potential to help other kids. That really just has made him very excited. So please go to papercloudsapparel.com and order your t-shirt.
You can also go to our Act Today website. There's a link.
Okay. They're the softest t-shirts.
Okay, great.
They're amazingly. They're bamboo. They're
I love that.
Fabulous. Okay. So in any case, I thank you for being here. We thank all of our guests for being here with us.
Great show.
Dr. Feldman and
very interesting.
Aaron and Brian about the QR codes. Fascinating. We'll be back tomorrow with more. I'll be back tomorrow.
I'll see you next Wednesday.
That's right. And so until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Absolutely.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Good